First thing I want to apologize for is that ridiculous picture of me. I'm taking that out of circulation as soon as I get back to Florida. It was a few years ago, and I've been too lazy to go back and get a new one. That's what's going on. First, I want to thank all of you for coming and bothering to listen to me on what I'm going to talk to you about. But I really want to thank the board of MMCC. I had a good opportunity to speak to them at length yesterday, the board and, of course, the advisory council for MMCC. And I got a chance to understand a little bit about the history of how it came to be one consolidated entity. So when we're talking about the idea of unity, I think you guys already get it. You're on the right track. And it's really not a question of unity in the sense of, hey, we all need to pray on the same day for Eid and that sort of thing. What we're really talking about with unity is, what we're talking about is the idea that we need to agree on common goals. We can have a disagreement on how to get there, but we have to agree on where we're going. And that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about today. Now, you have some excellent things happening in this community. This idea of the Dream Project, it's ridiculously good. That is such a great idea. I feel like stupid I didn't think of it first. I may go to Florida and just take credit for it. I don't know. I'm pondering that. No, I want to have something like that come down to Florida, because I've done work for Habitat for Humanity, that sort of thing, and I really think that the power of our community is that we have the ability to do so much. We have so many vast resources in our community, both professional, academic, and financial, that when we marshal them for a cause like this, that is truly faith in action. That is the definition of faith in action. Now, one of the goals we do need to talk about is resource management. We have to be a little bit better on how we manage our community resources. You're going to see as you go around the country that there are moments where you have duplication of the exact same service, and we have to figure out, how do we do that better? How do we coordinate that sort of thing? You know, every community needs a certain number of entities to service the community's needs. So it's important to have a lot of institutions. And when I say institutions, understand, what is an institution? An institution is something that will live beyond your lifetime. You have created it in a way that you have set up succession. You have set up that path of leadership for the next group to come in and leave. We have a little bit of a problem in our community. We have one community that founded organizations, and for a variety of reasons, never move on. You have millennials, young people coming into the system, looking for opportunities to lead. We try to teach them about leadership, and then we don't give them an opportunity to lead. And then we have what I call the bridge society. And the bridge are most of the folks that are not the founders, and they're not the millennials, and they kind of are in the middle, running things, trying to figure this mess out. And we have to understand, why do founders not leave? I'm a founder of a bunch of things. I can tell you why you don't leave. You don't leave for two reasons. One, that it's like your child. You created it, you've raised it, and you want to make sure that it continues in the vision that you started it, because that vision you felt was so important. So how do we address that? We have to get together and start meeting with the bridge community and the millennial community together with the founders. We cannot be in our own separate silos on this. You get together and you start sharing that vision, and you start mentoring. Mentoring. We don't do it enough. You have to start mentoring folks who can come in eventually and succeed you. If we don't work on that, then these aren't institutions. They will tend to die when we die. And all of the work we've done is for naught. Some of the things that we have to have in our community, you see them already. And I kind of view these as slices of a pie, and we're in Michigan, you can call it spokes on a wheel if you want, whatever works for you. You know, you have the mosque slice. We have schools. which were part-time schools and full-time schools. You've got organizations that do charity and zakat and development work, relief work, all of that slice of work. You have civil rights organizations. You have civic engagement entities. And sometimes you have entities that are like this, that are umbrella organizations, and that do a great job of communicating and finding ways to be conveners and to bring people together. We have to have all of these things, but we have to manage these resources in a way that we don't overlap. The last thing that your donor wants to do is to give you the same dollar as they give me for the exact same thing. Now, unless the two groups agree that, you know what, there's so much to do, we're going to work together and we're going to divide and conquer that same task. That's different, but because you're showing the collaboration of the community. So we have donor fatigue in our community. We have to make sure that part of unity is to address that issue and make sure that our community understands we look after their money, and that's why they need to give it to us. They need to keep donating. They need to keep supporting, because we are very careful in how we use those resources. Civic engagement. Let me talk to you about that for a bit. Now, politics. Is politics a dirty word in this town? In some communities and in some mosques, politics is a dirty word. No, brother, we don't want to talk politics here. No politics. Well, you're doing your community a disservice. First of all, there is a difference in understanding the word politics versus civic engagement. Politics is actually the process of choosing your policymaker, and civic engagement is the process of being a good citizen and engaging as a good citizen, which is your responsibility. You have that responsibility. As a Muslim, you have that responsibility. You know, there's a surah Balad. It's actually named the city. And in part, the reason that surah talks about the responsibilities to orphans, to widows, to the poor, the idea of servicing as a community member your community. That's right in the Quran. It's Surah 90. So it is your responsibility. It's your obligation. And it's part of your morality. You know, we can't be taking this moral high ground that our faith says all of these great things, and then we just don't follow it and we don't turn it into action. We don't show how all the great things that we've been given as Muslims as information, how it actually can turn into practical reality. And it's important because folks come to me and they say, oh, we're living in such a morally bankrupt society. Sorry, I wasn't supposed to use the word bankrupt in Detroit, I'm sorry. A morally desperate society, and this community is here and we want to be a part of the solution. Okay, how are you part of the solution? You have the opportunity. Civic engagement is a great opportunity to do that. Now, to do that, you have to get a couple of things out of the way. The first thing is fear. Let's be honest. There is a lot of fear in our community. The Muslim community is afraid of, I mean, if you ever saw the show Monk, you know, all of his phobias, the Muslim community is right up there. We're like that. You know, we're afraid that if we engage, we're going to lose our identity. That we're the small community, there's a big community, we engage, and then we're going to become like something we don't want to be. We have a fear that, oh, we'll break the law. If we have an elected official come into the mosque, oh my God, we're breaking the law because we're like doing politics in the mosque. Well, knowledge is the other part of this, right? We have to have knowledge. We have to act with knowledge. Your mosque can be a platform for great civic engagement. You're allowed to do that. I'll put my lawyer hat on for a second. If you endorse a particular candidate or party in the mosque, no, can't do that. If you, on the other hand, talk about the issues in your community and you bring people in who are your elected officials who can help resolve those issues and work with you on those issues, that's absolutely encouraged. You're the ambassadors to everything you are. So you're the ambassadors to being Muslim, you're the ambassadors to the ethnicity you are, you're the ambassadors to everything other people think you are. One of the things we are afraid of is to reach outside the community. I'm going to make this statement, and a lot of folks are going to disagree with me, but Muslim Americans are actually the most civically engaged community in the country. You know why? I'll tell you why. You have built mosques, schools, charitable organizations. You've collected millions and millions and millions of dollars. You have managed to organize all this and funnel it and deliver services. You have done so much with that. That is civic engagement. It's mostly done by volunteers and board people who have a day job and have kids and deal with all the other things in their life, but also contribute to the community. You do all this work. You are the example of civic engagement. The problem is you stop at a boundary. You've created a border in your own head. It's all of your own making. It's in our heads. We stop where the Muslim community stops. If we just pushed on and kept going and let that wave roll, we would have the same great impact we have inside the community, outside the community. We have to be confident in our own identity. I had the opportunity, I came in Friday from Florida. I spoke to a group of youth yesterday at Huda School, awesome institution, great kids there. And I spoke to a group of folks at the Canton Mosque on Friday. And we talked about this issue of identity. And when we spoke, it was pretty clear to me that the same issues that we have here in Michigan, we have them all over the country, which is that we have to be relevant to our youth. They have to see the connect. They're on Facebook and Twitter and they're doing all this other stuff. They're exposed to the whole world, but when they are engaged with the community, they see this bubble. And they see that their parents are only working in this bubble, and to them they're like, well, that's not what I know. That's not what I want to be. We have to make our work relevant to them. Otherwise, you're losing them. They're gone. Okay? So, what can we agree on? We talked about agreeing on common goals. Well, what can we agree on? Let's agree first that we need facts. If you're going to create a mechanism to have real influence in your community, you need to get outside your community. I looked at the board of director list for some of the organizations in the Detroit area. United Way, the Rotary Club, Kiwanis, all these organizations. And I did not, nothing jumped out at me to show me that the Muslim community was really participating in any of those. Now, that could be that they are. It could be that they aren't. The point is that if we are not a part of all of these other institutions in our community, then we have segregated ourselves. We have ghettoed ourselves for no reason than our own thoughts, our own brain. We are limiting ourselves. Because all of the great stuff you do here, you go there, you go to United Way and you do the same stuff there, I guarantee you, you will make United Way a better thing. And that will help everybody. Why limit yourself? We talk about how others are being Islamophobic and they won't let us do this and they won't let us do that. Well, I'm challenging you all today to not limit yourself. If that's the only challenge we've got is that others are trying to limit us, well, you know what? We can beat that challenge any day of the week. But we have to not only be willing to want to win, we have to be willing to lose. You have to be willing to lose. Don't be afraid to go out there. Worst that can happen, we don't want you. Okay? Well, you're no worse than you started. But you have to be willing to take that step. I am pretty confident you take the step and a hand will reach out to you to pull you in to whatever it is you seek to get involved with. Developing facts. Let's talk about the demographics here and civic engagement on a political level. In Florida, we created a voter database. We have 150,000 registered voters in it that are identifying themselves as Muslim, Arab, South Asian, those types of communities. And that database has allowed us to do a lot. Now, imagine sending your kid to school for, the 12 years until they get to college, and never once do they take a test. So you have no idea how they're doing. That is how we're working right now when we're talking about the Muslim community and civic engagement. We have no data. We have no idea how we're doing. It's all guesswork. How many Muslims are Muslim voters in Michigan? Anybody? We got a few hands raised. Anybody here not registered to vote but eligible to vote? You're not putting your hand up, but you are. I know it. Come on. All right, I'm not calling you out. There's no punishment for it. Okay. So what's going on is that we don't really have data on this, so we can't tell. I couldn't tell you how many registered Muslim voters there are in Michigan. I looked. I couldn't figure it out. And I can't tell you percentage of votes of that community over the last few cycles. We don't have the data. We're not doing it. So we created a thing called Emerging Data, which is a project just to work on this. And the reason is because we need facts. You can't make a decision without facts. You can have some assumptions, but without the facts behind it, you don't know if you're right or wrong. So what we did is back in 2006, with a very small number, I think at that time only had a database of about 20,000. We turned out that after polling it was about 40% was the voter turnout in the 2006 election. Now, once we really got going, we started the PAC in 2006, and we started the nonprofit in 2007, which really started mobilizing votes. And I'm going to compare apples to apples, so non-presidential years to non-presidential, presidential to presidential, because it's a completely different ballgame each time. So 2006, non-presidential, 40% turnout. 2010, 4 years later, 68% turnout. That compares with 42% for the state of Florida, more than 20% above the state numbers. Why did that happen? Well, because we saw the low voter turnout, we figured out where they were geographically, and then we went there and we just asked people to go vote. And guess what? They eventually said, oh, okay. And they went and voted. It turned out. It was pretty simple stuff. 2008, presidential year, we had an 85% turnout, and we thought, wow, that's like because, there was a lot of excitement, Obama, the whole race, and that's not going to happen again. Well, guess what? 2012. On election day, we had a 50% voter turnout, and before the election, the other 50% turned out. That means that we managed to achieve half of our people to vote before election day. Why is that important? Because absentee ballots and early voting guarantees you that those people will vote, right? You don't have to worry about it on election day. They did it. It's done. It's in the bank. Then you don't have to focus on that. You only have to focus on the other half on election day. And it helps your resource allocation too. Well, we had a 95% voter turnout in the state of Florida for the Muslim community in 2012. And this comes from certain efforts, and it's not rocket science. It's telling people, go register to vote, and setting up opportunities at the mosques to register them to vote. It's asking folks, please bring your family with you when you come vote, anyone who's eligible to vote. It's making it interesting and doing fun things to try to get your young folks to participate in the process. And it's trying to figure out the science behind it, the numbers, and where you need to spend your time to get the right numbers of turnout to happen. And that's exactly what happened. Over the course of 6 years, we've gone from a 40% to about a 95% voter turnout in the community. That's a sea change. That's a change of culture. You are no longer spending your time talking to people about go vote. Now you can spend your time telling people, how else can you be engaged? Maybe you should try to run for school board. Maybe you should run for state senate. And you have a great example. Rashida Tlaib right here is running for state senate, has been in the state house. And folks like her create that icon that we can all tell our young folks about. I grew up loving Superman, okay? Why? Because, like, larger than life, could do things I didn't think I could do. Our kids don't think they could do certain things. They don't think they could be that elected official that Rashida is. She tells them by her very existence that, yes, it's possible. We need more of that. But as much as I love Rashida, we have to hold our elected officials accountable. You know, the history of political engagement in our community has unfortunately been a lot of photo opportunities and not a lot of substance. So I'm not from Michigan, so I can say some things that are a little unpopular around here, right? So here's really how this works, and I'm going to tell it to you by an example. In Florida, we had a pretty good relationship with Congressman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And she was not at that time the DNC chair. And we had invited her to speak at the Emerge Banquet one year. I think it was in 2011. And she agreed to come, and we had started promoting it. And about 3 weeks before the event, she was named DNC chair. Well, about 4 weeks before the event, she was named DNC chair. And so a week later, suddenly now, because she's DNC chair, she becomes a bit more of a political target. So somebody who was running on the far right for Congress against her said that, Emerge is a Muslim organization, so it's a terrorist organization and all that kind of stuff. The normal, as I call it, unfortunately, in many instances. So sadly, she reacted to that and she pulled out of the event. Now, she's already somebody who we have a good relationship with. She's come to events in the community. She's had some engagement. But unfortunately, that act required some response because it's our job to hold people accountable. That's how this works. It's pretty much a friendly business relationship. So if you have a business and you could be good friends with that person, but if they don't pay the invoice, you're going to call them, right? And you're going to say, hey, I need you to pay this invoice. And if they don't, you got to do what you got to do. So I ended up writing an op-ed in the Miami Herald and pointed out, just as a very matter of fact, that she was invited to come, that somebody on the far right said that she's consorting with Muslims, so she's engaging with terrorists, and she then withdrew from the event. And those are the facts. So we have to hold folks accountable, whether they're our friends or they're not. At the end of the day, it's not me or you that you're holding them accountable for. It is for the entire community. Because if you don't, then you have set the wrong precedent. I'm going to give you another similar example, and it was mentioned earlier, and that's that of Congressman Allen West. So Allen West gets elected, and he's actually my congressman. He was in my district where I lived. And I went to an event. He was doing a town hall at a high school. And I'm there, and my brother's there, and a couple other guys from the community are there. And I didn't go up, but my brother goes up there, and he says, I've heard you say stuff, and it sounds like you're not, you don't like Muslims, and you think that Muslims are all bad, and, I'm here with my daughter, and I want to understand where that's coming from, or do you really think that? And he basically said yes, that the issue to me, is what he said, is that it's not that I'm saying that Muslims are bad. I'm just saying anyone who believes in Islam is bad. My brother didn't have to say anything. His daughter grabs the mic and says, "That makes no sense." And then I was at another event, and I was shocked because he's talking about this bumper sticker, which just says coexist. Have you ever seen this bumper sticker? It's got like the C is the crescent, and it's, you know, it's spelled, all the different religious symbols spells coexist. And he's talking about this bumper sticker. And he's ranting against the bumper sticker coexist. And he's saying that nothing gets my blood boiling more than seeing this bumper sticker coexist. I was dumbfounded, like what's coming next out of his mouth now, right? So, and he goes on to say, because it's not about coexisting. It's about American values. What? Again, made no sense. So, and then he went on and he was very, you know, he bashed Muslims, he bashed women, he bashed gays and lesbians, he just went after everybody. So come 2010, 10. What was the election? I forget now when it was. Whenever the election was. That he ends up running against someone named Patrick Murphy. The redistricting happens. He gets pushed farther north than where he originally was. So he's no longer in my district. He's now north in a more rural district. And I look at the numbers, and it's about 55% Republican, 40% Democrat, some independents. The guy who is running against Patrick Murphy, young guy, no history, you know, has really no track record at all. And everybody said, look, there's no way that Alan West is going to lose this race. And he had already raised $6 million for this race. So we looked at the numbers, and we looked at the, again, going back to the facts that we had facts. We had how many Muslims are in that territory, in his district. There weren't that many. It's pretty rural. But they were about 2,400. So what we said is, you know what, we're going to do our part. We're going to mobilize those 2,400, and we're going to see what we can do about getting them to mobilize their neighbors and friends. Well, on election night, Patrick Murphy gives me a call, and he says, I won by 2,000 votes. So we had a 95% voter turnout, and he credited us with the win. The truth is that I credit everybody who believes in having a responsible and fair elected official with the win, because that's why he got kicked out of office. Now, I want to talk to you about another goal we can agree on. The idea of a pipeline for leadership. We have a program called Emerging Leaders where we target, and I went through this thing called Leadership Florida, and you guys have a thing here called Leadership Michigan, and you should all go apply for it because that is part of the resume you need to build. And essentially, that program let me create the same opportunity for our youth. So it's a program for college kids. It's 3 retreats. It moves around throughout the state of Florida. They understand the issues. They understand how to better project themselves and their image, public speaking, all of those things. And at the end of the day, we are creating that pipeline for leadership. And we are connecting them with adults that can mentor them. That is something that is critical that we can all agree on doing. And we can do that in a way that helps bring our communities together. Because we have a problem in this Muslim community and in every Muslim community, which we have silos where they're broken down vertically by socioeconomics, and you could say horizontally by ethnicity or community. And these things don't always work together. Even within one vertical silo of, let's call it in the Arab community, you'll have wealthy and not so wealthy, right? And they may not interact. So we have this barrier within our community that prevents us from doing all this stuff that we have to do. It's a problem. But organizations like this help get over that problem. And that's why this is so critically amazing, this organization, because it is, at the very least, the communication tool. It is, at the very least, an opportunity for everyone to get together from all those different silos and communicate and talk about issues. And there's going to be an issue that might not be resonating with you. It might not be relevant to you, but if it's relevant to somebody else in the room, then it should be relevant to you, because it will have an impact. It will affect you. I'll give you an example. Poverty issues. Poverty issues are not something that you see the Muslim community out front on as you go around the country. But why is that? Well, generally speaking, to be quite frank, the leadership in the Muslim community are often folks who are not poor. And that's how they have the time to be leadership in the community. What ends up happening, though, is that those who are without resources need a voice. And it's your duty, it's your civic responsibility, it's your job as a citizen and as a Muslim to give them a voice within your own community. So we have to do that. It's mandatory. It's not an option. We have to internalize that message. One of the things that is, I think, also interesting is that we've had a lot of folks who are coming into the system. That pipeline is starting to happen. They're coming into a position where they want to be running for office. They don't know how to do that. We have to create a mechanism that teaches them how to do that. And sometimes we have to rely on some of those relationships we've built with our elected officials already. You have a young person who wants to get into politics. Guess what? You have a relationship with a politician. That is a good fit. That young person can be mentored by that politician. That young person can be an intern with that politician, right? You have that relationship already. You just need to ask. You need to make the request. If there's an opportunity, there are so many qualified people in our community, young and not so young, that really have the talent and the skill set to be involved in a much greater capacity with our government. You need to ask your elected officials, how does that happen? How do we get that person appointed? Create that resume book. When Obama won in 2008, everybody says, oh, well, you know what, we didn't get what we wanted, and look at what he's doing on this policy or that policy or drones. And at the end of the day, you know what we got? We got about 24 young Muslims appointed into the federal government. That's what you got. 10 years afterwards, those folks are going to be in a position to do more for you. They'll be in a position to run for office. So don't be myopic. Don't have a view of just right now. Because this isn't about you, it's about your children and your children's children. This is about the future. Your time is finite. Finite. So don't think of it that way. So let me end with this. You have an opportunity right now. You have a great opportunity because you have the resources, you have the demographics, the people, and you have the passion for it, as we could see tonight, by all the great stuff that's going on in this community. So you have a challenge in front of you, which is how do you make this all relevant for your kids? How do you make sure that they don't give up their identity in order to fit in? How do you make sure that they stay strong in their identity and pursue their goals? It should not be this or that. They should be able to do both. They should be able to be a Muslim and a state representative. They should be able to be somebody from the Arab community and mayor of a city. They should be able to be someone from the Indo-Pakistani communities and a school board member. They should be able to have both identities because these things do work together. These things do coexist. It is part of your tradition and your culture. And we have to make sure that we don't make them pick. We have that opportunity right now, and we need to take advantage of it. Thank you.